Have you ever walked through a tool store? You see all that shiny, expensive gear and you start to wonder, do I need that fancy saw to build something nice? It's a common idea in woodworking. Many people think that the more money you spend on tools, the better your projects will turn out. They believe a $1,000 table saw will magically make you a better woodworker than a $100 circular saw. It's an easy trap to fall into. We see professionals with amazing workshops and assume their success comes from the tools, not the hands holding them. This idea can stop people from even starting. They look at their small collection of budget tools and feel discouraged. They think they can't possibly make a beautiful piece of furniture without a workshop full of premium equipment. But is that really true? I wanted to put this theory to the test, so I decided to build the exact same project 3 separate times. The project was a simple, modern, floating wall shelf. The wood was identical. The measurements were identical. The only thing that changed was the class of tools I used for each build. The plan was simple. First, I would build the shelf using only the cheapest, most basic entry-level tools you can find. Think budget brand circular saws and cordless drills that come in a combo kit for less than a nice dinner. Next, I would build it again using solid mid-range tools. These are the tools that many serious hobbyists own. They are a significant step up from the budget options but don't break the bank. Finally, I would build the shelf a 3rd time with premium professional-grade tools. These are the best of the best, promising ultimate precision and power. So, what happens when you pit these tool tiers against each other on the same simple project? Does the final product change dramatically, or is the real difference somewhere else entirely? Let's dive in and see what happened. We're going to explore not just the finished shelves, but the actual experience of building each one. The journey, as they say, is often more important than the destination. This experiment was all about that journey. It was about the setup, the cuts, the sanding, and the feeling of accomplishment at each stage. Let's get building. First up was the budget build. I grabbed the cheapest tools I could find. My main cutting tool was a basic circular saw with a standard blade it came with. For assembly, I used a low-power cordless drill and some simple clamps. Right away, the challenges started. Setting up for a cut took a lot of time and careful measurement. The saw's base plate wasn't perfectly flat, and the guide wasn't very reliable. I had to double-check every measurement and use a separate straight edge, clamped down securely, to guide the saw for every single cut. This added a lot of time to the process. Making the cuts was a lesson in patience. The budget saw's motor struggled a bit with the hardwood, and the blade left a rough, splintery edge. This is what we call tear out. It meant I would have a lot more sanding to do later. Precision was a constant battle. Even with my careful setup, it was difficult to get perfectly straight, square cuts. The drill also struggled to drive screws in without stripping the heads, so I had to be slow and deliberate. It felt like I was fighting the tools every step of the way, forcing them to do what I wanted. Sanding was probably the biggest chore of this build. The rough cuts from the saw blade required a ton of work to smooth out. I started with a coarse grit sandpaper and had to slowly work my way up to a finer grit. It took a long time to get the edges clean and the surfaces ready for a finish. The entire process felt slow and deliberate. It required more of my skill and patience to overcome the limitations of the tools. You couldn't just power through it. You had to think about every single action and how the tool would react. In the end, I had a shelf. It was a solid shelf that looked pretty good, but getting there was a grind. The setup was finicky, the cuts were rough, and the sanding was a marathon. It proved that you can absolutely build good things with cheap tools. However, it requires a lot more from you, the woodworker. You have to provide the precision that the tools lack. You have to put in the extra effort to clean up their mistakes. It's a build that tests your technique and your patience far more than your wallet. Next, I moved on to the mid-range tools. This is where many hobbyist woodworkers live, and for good reason. I used a better quality circular saw with a fine finish blade, a more powerful cordless drill, and some sturdier clamps. The difference was noticeable from the very first cut. The setup was much faster. The saw had a better, more accurate guide and a flat base, which made lining up cuts much simpler. I felt more confident that the saw would go where I pointed it, which saved me a lot of time I previously spent double-checking. The cutting process was so much smoother. The more powerful motor and higher quality blade went through the wood like butter. There was almost no tear out, leaving a clean, sharp edge on the wood. This was a huge improvement. It meant less time sanding and a better fit for the joints. The drill had more torque, so driving screws was effortless. There were no stripped heads or struggling motors. Everything just worked the way it was supposed to. It felt less like a fight and more like a partnership between me and the tools. This smoother process had a ripple effect on the entire project. Because the cuts were cleaner and more accurate, the pieces fit together more snugly. The assembly was quicker and less frustrating. I spent significantly less time sanding because the surfaces were already in great shape, right from the saw. The whole build just flowed better. I could focus more on the rhythm of the work, instead of constantly troubleshooting the tools. It was a much more enjoyable and relaxing experience from start to finish. The mid-range build felt like the sweet spot. The tools provided a major upgrade in performance and user experience without costing a fortune. They were reliable, accurate, and made the project genuinely fun. You weren't fighting against their limitations, so you could focus your energy on your technique and the creative process. It showed that a thoughtful investment in a few key tools can make a world of difference, not just in the quality of the cut, but in the quality of the time you spend in your workshop. This build was efficient and satisfying. Finally, it was time for the premium tools. I broke out a high-end track saw, a powerful and ergonomic professional drill, and some very nice parallel clamps. This is the kind of gear you see in professional cabinet shops. The experience was, in a word, effortless. The track saw was the star of the show. You simply lay the track on your cut line, and the saw glides along it perfectly. It delivered a flawless, glass-smooth cut with absolutely zero tear-out. It was so clean, it looked like it had already been sanded. Everything about the premium tools was just better. The ergonomics were superior, making them more comfortable to hold and use for extended periods. The adjustments were precise and easy to set. The power was immense yet controllable. I felt an incredible sense of confidence using them. There was no question that the cut would be perfect, or that the screw would be driven flawlessly. The speed of the build increased dramatically because there was no need for test cuts, extra sanding, or careful finessing. The tools did exactly what they were told, instantly. However, here's the interesting part. While the experience was amazing, was the final result that much different? I spent a lot less time sanding for sure. The assembly was maybe a tiny bit tighter due to the incredible precision of the cuts, but the core of the project, the assembly and finishing, was still dependent on my technique. The tools made the initial steps faster and cleaner, but they didn't automatically assemble the shelf or apply the finish for me. The premium experience was about speed, ease, and a feeling of absolute control. When I put all three finished shelves side by side on the wall, you could barely tell them apart. From a few feet away they looked identical. The biggest difference was not in the final product, but in the journey to get there. The budget build required patience and skill to overcome the tools. The premium build was fast and flawless. The mid-range build was the happy medium. This proves a powerful lesson. The most important tool in your workshop is you. Your skill, technique, and patience matter more than the price tag on your saw. So don't wait for the perfect tools. Start building with what you have, and upgrade thoughtfully when your skills start to demand more than your tools can give.